My girlfriend texted me to say she was staying the night at her work friend, Jake's apartment. She expected me to get jealous, to fight for her. Instead, I replied, "Thanks for letting me know," and then spent the next 3 hours methodically packing every single thing she owned into boxes and delivering them to Jake's doorstep. Her 3 a.m. phone call, after his actual girlfriend showed up, was pure, karmic gold. It's 4 o'clock in the morning, and the blue light of my phone screen is painting strange, shifting shadows on the walls of my silent apartment. The phone itself is on silent, but the screen is a frantic, strobing beacon of desperation. It's my ex-girlfriend, Kendra, a 25-year-old whirlwind of chaos who, until about 10 hours ago, I thought I was going to marry. She is currently in the middle of a text message meltdown of epic proportions. 3 hours ago, she was here, hammering on my newly changed locks. 2 hours ago, according to a mutual friend, she was a sobbing, hysterical mess on the sidewalk outside of her coworker Jake's apartment building. Now, she's apparently taken refuge at her friend Mia's place, and the full, crushing weight of her consequences is finally beginning to sink in. Let's rewind to yesterday afternoon, to the moment the first crack appeared in the foundation of our 2-year relationship. We've been living together for 8 months in my apartment, a space I had carefully curated and was proud to call my own. For the past few weeks, things had been off, a subtle but palpable shift in the atmosphere between us. She had become distant, a ghost in our shared home. Her phone was a fortress, always angled away from me. Its screen quickly darkened whenever I entered the room. The excuses for working late had become more frequent, more elaborate. They were all the classic, textbook signs of infidelity, but I had chosen to ignore them. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that the woman I loved wasn't capable of that kind of betrayal. Then, at 6 o'clock yesterday evening, as I stood in our kitchen preparing a dinner I thought we would be sharing, my phone buzzed with a text that would change everything. It was from Kendra. "Hey," it read, "going to stay at Jake's tonight. Don't wait up." Jake, her work friend, the same colleague who she swore was just a platonic mentor, despite the fact that he littered her Instagram posts with heart-eye emojis and frequently texted her at midnight about urgent work matters. My response was immediate, and it was colder than I had ever been with her. "Thanks for letting me know." That was it. No questions, no accusations, no begging. Her reply came back instantly. "That's it? No questions?" I typed back, "You've made your choice. Have a good night." "Don't be so dramatic," she wrote. "We're just working on a project. It's a huge deadline." "Okay." She sent 3 more messages after that, each one a transparent attempt to bait me into a fight, to elicit some kind of jealous, passionate reaction. She explained, in painstaking detail, how completely innocent the situation was, how I was being weird and insecure by not engaging. I didn't reply. I just stared at the screen, a cold, hard clarity settling over me. Here's the thing about Kendra and our living situation. She had moved into my apartment. She paid 0 rent, a concession I had made, so she could aggressively pay down her student loans. Her name was not, and had never been, on the lease. I covered the utilities, the groceries, the internet, everything. She would occasionally toss a couple $100s a month into our shared expenses account, but only when she remembered to. I had been okay with this arrangement, genuinely happy to support her, because I loved her, and as a software developer, I made a comfortable living. But if she wanted to spend the night at Jake's house, then fine. She could stay there permanently. I turned off the stove, the half-cooked pasta still sitting in the pot, and I got to work. My first stop was our bedroom. With a methodical, almost surgical precision, I began to pack. Every piece of her clothing was taken from the closet and the dresser, carefully sorted, folded, and placed into cardboard boxes I'd stored in the attic. Her extensive collection of makeup, her toiletries, her myriad of hair styling tools, all of it was carefully wrapped in newspaper and packed away. Her jewelry, her accessories, her mountain of shoes, every last item was organized and boxed up. I even stripped her pillowcase from her pillow and folded it neatly on top of a box of her sweaters. It was a monumental task. It took me 3 hours, 8 large boxes, and 2 of her designer suitcases to completely erase her presence from my home. I was meticulous. I even made sure to include the spare phone charger she was always forgetting and her favorite oversized coffee mug with the chipped rim. By 10 o'clock, my car was loaded. I had found Jake's address in her phone's GPS history from a few weeks prior, when she had asked me to drop her off for a team meeting at his place. It was a 20-minute drive across town. I arrived at his apartment building at 10:30. It was a modern, secure building, but my luck was in, As I approached the front door, someone was leaving and they held it open for me. "Thanks, man," I said to the random stranger who had unwittingly become an accomplice in my revenge. I found Jake's unit on the third floor. As I got closer, I could hear music and peals of laughter coming from inside. It most certainly did not sound like a high-pressure work meeting. I began to unload. I stacked all 8 boxes and both suitcases neatly and quietly outside his front door, creating a formidable barricade of her worldly possessions. I took a quick photo with my phone, just for my records. Then, I placed a handwritten note on the very top box. It was short and to the point. "Kendra's belongings, as per her request. She's all yours now. Enjoy." Her ex. I drove home, a strange sense of calm settling over me. The first thing I did was call a 24-hour locksmith. It cost me $180 to have the locks changed, and it was worth every single penny. I updated the code on my digital deadbolt. Then, I began the digital purge. I removed her from my Netflix account, my Spotify family plan, my gym membership, and my Amazon Prime account. I called my credit card company and canceled the supplementary card I had given her for emergencies, a card she had primarily used for her daily Starbucks habit. Finally, I went back into the kitchen, finished cooking the pasta, poured myself a cold beer, and settled in to watch a movie. At 11:45 p.m., the first call came. I ignored it. Then another. The text started a few minutes later, a rapid-fire barrage of confusion and fury. "What is this? Why is all my stuff at Jake's apartment? This isn't funny, call me back. I'm coming home right now." At 12:30 a.m., she was at my door. Her key, of course, didn't work. The doorbell began to ring, a frantic, insistent buzzing, followed by a loud, angry banging on the door. "Open the door." "This is insane," she screamed from the hallway. I sent her a single text message in response. "You chose to stay at Jake's. I'll just help you with the move. Please stop disturbing my neighbors." She called 83 times in the next hour. I put my phone on silent and went to bed. At 3 in the morning, she called from her friend Mia's phone. I actually answered that one, thinking it might be a genuine emergency. It was Kendra, and she was screaming, "You absolute psycho. You can't just kick me out." "I didn't kick you out," I replied, my voice calm. "You moved out the moment you decided to spend the night at another man's house. It was one night. For work. If it was for work, your company would have put you up in a hotel," I countered. "You chose to be in Jake's apartment, in Jake's bed. I wasn't. We weren't. Nothing happened." "It doesn't matter now," I said. "Your stuff is there. You're there. We're done." "But where am I supposed to live?" she wailed. "You chose to stay at Jake's last night," I repeated. "Seems like that's your answer." There was a pause, and then her voice came back, laced with a new note of panic. "Hey, he has a girlfriend. She showed up and saw all my stuff. She's freaking out. Sounds like a problem for Jake," I said, feeling not a shred of sympathy. "You did this to me on purpose." "I did exactly what your actions dictated," I replied. "You wanted to stay at Jake's. Now you can stay there forever." She started sobbing then, a theatrical, self-pitying sound. The entitled princess, who truly believed she could have her cake and eat it too, was finally being forced to confront reality. "I have nowhere to go," she cried. "You should have thought about that before you sent that text." "I'll call the police," she threatened. "Please do," I said, my voice dripping with mock sincerity. "I'm sure they will find it fascinating. Please, explain to them how your ex-boyfriend meticulously packed all of your belongings and delivered them to the exact address where you told him you would be staying for the night." I hung up. It's 4 o'clock in the morning now. In the last hour, she has sent 127 messages. They're a chaotic, schizophrenic mix of threats, apologies, declarations of love, and more threats. My personal favorite: "You will regret this when you're alone forever." Lady, I would rather be alone for the rest of my life than be a placeholder, a safety net for someone who is actively shopping around for a better option. The entitlement only escalated from there. I woke up at 8 in the morning to a call from my landlord. Apparently, Kendra had shown up at his office at 7:30, demanding a key to my apartment and claiming there had been some sort of mistake with the locks. My landlord, a good man who valued my long-term tenancy, called me to verify her story. "No mistake," I told him. "She moved out last night." He told me she was insisting she was on the lease. I assured him she was not, and had never been. He chuckled. "Roger that," he said. "I'll handle it." By 9 o'clock, the flying monkeys had been dispatched. First, her mother, Darlene, called. "How dare you throw my daughter out on the street?" she screeched. "She chose to stay at another man's house," I replied calmly. I simply facilitated her move. She made one mistake. No, I corrected her. She made a choice, and I respected it. She then tried to threaten me with legal action, claiming I was legally obligated to give Kendra 30 days notice. I informed her that since Kendra was never a tenant, never paid rent, and was not on the lease, she had no tenant rights. She was a guest who had chosen to leave. She called me a monster. I told her I was a man who refused to be disrespected in his own home, and then I wished her a nice day and hung up. Next up was Jake himself. The audacity of the man was breathtaking. "Bro, what the hell?" he began. "Jake," I replied, my voice sweet as poison. "How's your girlfriend handling the news?" "That was messed up, man." "What was messed up?" I shot back. "Was you inviting my girlfriend for sleepover?" He tried to stammer out an excuse, claiming it wasn't like that. I cut him off. "Then you won't mind if I forward those Instagram DMs between you and Kendra to your girlfriend, right? The ones where you call her baby and talk in graphic detail about all the things you want to do to her." There was a long, heavy silence on the other end of the line. "Yeah," I continued. "Kendra left her iPad here, still signed in. I found some very interesting messages this morning. All screenshotted and saved, of course." I let him squirm for a moment before delivering the final blow. "You wanted to play with someone else's girlfriend. Now you can have her full-time. Congratulations." He then had the nerve to tell me he didn't want her stuff at his place. I told him to tell her to come get it, that it was no longer my problem. He hung up. But the real spectacle came around noon, when Kendra showed up at my apartment building with a police officer in tow. "This woman claims you have illegally evicted her," the officer said, his expression weary. I calmly explained the situation. She was a guest. She had texted me to say she was staying elsewhere. I had packed her belongings and delivered them to that address. She had never paid rent, was not on the lease, and therefore had no tenant rights. The officer then asked Kendra for any proof of residency, rent receipts, a lease agreement, anything. She had nothing. I then showed him the text from Kendra, as well as a few of the more incriminating screenshots of her messages with Jake. The officer's eyebrows shot up. He turned to Kendra. "Ma'am," he said, his voice firm, "it appears you voluntarily left the residence, and he simply delivered your belongings to the location you specified. This is a civil matter, not a criminal one." When she started to wail about having nowhere to go, he informed her that it was not my responsibility to provide her with housing. The officer left. Kendra just stood there, staring at me, her face a mask of disbelief. "How could you do this to me?" she whispered. "How could you text me that you were staying at another man's house and expect me to be okay with it?" I asked in return. And then, the most insane part of all. "It was a test," she said, her voice barely audible. I just stared at her, speechless. "A test to see if you would fight for me. If you really loved me, you would have been jealous. You would have come after me. If you really loved me," I replied, "you wouldn't play twisted, manipulative games. You failed your own test, Kendra. You're supposed to chase after me," she cried. "I'm not a dog," I said. "I don't chase. I replace." Her face crumpled. "Replace me?" "Already texted Tori," I said, a bit of a bluff at the time, but one I was now determined to follow through on. "We have a coffee date tomorrow." Tori was a former friend of Kendra's, a wonderful person who Kendra had unceremoniously dropped for being too pretty. The ugly crying started then, right there in the hallway of my apartment building. They were not tears of sadness, but tears of pure, unadulterated entitlement. The tears of a person who has just realized for the first time in her life that the world does not, in fact, revolve around her. The fallout from there was swift and brutal. Kendra's attempt to paint me as an abusive monster on social media backfired spectacularly when I responded with the screenshots of her and Jake's conversations. Her friend group, now armed with the truth, abandoned her. Mia kicked her out. Her parents, after I forwarded them the same screenshots, refused to let her move back home. She tried to commit identity theft, using my social security number to apply for a credit card. Luckily, I had already put a freeze on my credit. The attempt was logged, and I filed a police report. Her boss at work, after being made aware of her fraternization with Jake and the fact that they had both called in sick on the same days, fired them both. After being rejected by everyone she knew, she made one last, desperate play. She showed up at my apartment with a U-Haul and two of her burly cousins, claiming she was moving back in. What she didn't know was that I was having lunch with my buddy Carlos, who happens to be an off-duty cop, and my brother Felix, a 6'3" powerlifter. Her cousins, faced with a cop and a giant, quickly abandoned ship. Her final act of desperation was to try and commit identity theft a second time, attempting to open a phone plan in my name. This time, there were consequences. She was arrested and charged with 2 counts of attempted identity theft, 1 count of fraud, and 1 count of harassment. Her mother called me, begging me to bail her out. I refused. As for me, life is good. Tori and I are taking things slow, but she's amazing. My apartment is peaceful. My bank account is recovering. The last text I ever received from Kendra, just before her arrest, read, "You'll never find anyone like me." And to that, I can only say, thank God.